Amin. I'm a jack of all trades. Been doing the Linux thing for 5 years. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I like development too, web development in particular. Next slide, please. So, yeah, that's what I do. USF Research Computing is a department of 4 people. We like it that way. It's agile, nice and quick, although we will need to grow. I run a 300-plus server HPC grid. We run scientific computation codes using OpenMPI and various other message passing interfaces. And notice, I'm apparently still sane. There are lots of servers under my command, and somehow I've figured it all out. I can manage them, make them do everything from crunching numbers and do a dance. So how do I do it? How do I pull it off? Next. So I suppose in most other shops that don't depend on a lot of automation, because they might have 10 to 20 instead of 100 to 200, you have a certain life cycle of a server. You send somebody out maybe with a live CD or a USB key to install the operating system. Someone logs in, maybe sets up Apache, maybe sets up some services, edits some config files, sets root password, copies SSH keys. I can keep talking. Oh, build back keys. And then you also have monitoring, if at all. Is the server up or down? Are the services running properly? All of those aspects for a properly running HPC shop or any shop, web or whatever services you provide. And of course, maintenance. When something breaks, what do? Do you rebuild the server? Do you know how to fix it? What if you're a new admin? You have some old servers. So there's lots of questions. Next, please. All right, so that's pretty much what I just said. Those are pretty much the steps. You install it, you install the packages you need, configure it till it works, forget it till it breaks, fix it or install it again. And here's the real question. I'm sure you've heard in all the trade rags, oh yeah, Linux total cost of ownership is this, Windows total cost of ownership is that. What does that mean? Well, I think the #1 contributor, considering Linux in most parts is free, it's the time you invest in setting it up and keeping it running and the knowledge and all of this stuff, esoteric information that you need. So let's start for the first, the next thing here. We have provisioning. That's getting it from the BIOS to an actual operating system. And like we were saying before, usually someone just installs it off a CD. If you have more than one server and you do it this way, you're doing it over and over again. And if you have different people doing it with different methodologies or an idea of what a server is supposed to look like, it's going to look a little different. It's not going to be exactly the same. There's going to be some glitches. Obviously, it's time consuming. If I had to hand install 300 plus servers, I would go mad. And it also requires 100% of my attention. There's no automation there. I have to look at it and type into it and make it work.
You'd probably still be there.
I would still be there. I wouldn't be enjoying this nice conference. So this is the tool that I use for that job. Now the tools that I'm recommending to you might not necessarily work for you. If you have only maybe 5 or 10 servers, something like XCAT might not make sense. However, if you're doing grid scale, large scale computing, it might make a lot of sense. And of course, there's other tools that you might like. I understand there's I think an application called Chef that does something similar. But the reason why I got drawn to XCAT, which is the Extreme Cloud Administration Toolkit, is that apparently the biggest supercomputer at the time, which was Roadrunner, was installed using XCAT. So I'm like, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. The reason why I love it so much is it reduces the process of installing an operating system on a computer to a single command, reinstall host. You press enter, it reboots, it pixie boots, it does all the stuff you need to have a system up. We use Red Hat Kickstart host templates. You have to, in XCAT, you define a host template and say, okay, for this group's machines, you're going to use a set of instructions. All that Red Hat Kickstart is you feed it a bash script, and it defines, okay, this is what my partition table looks like. This is what my root password is. This is pretty much what the system's supposed to look like. My methodology with XCAT is it's very bare bones. Actually, let me go ahead and load it up. I have an example that might be interesting. Let me see. Oh. if I can drag this thing over. Oh, I'm dragging it. Yeah, so okay, so here we go. If you can scroll down for me in the VI, that'd be sweet. All right, so this is the template. It's kind of janky because the screen is so messed up. Yeah, if you scroll up to the top, that'd be awesome. Okay, so this is a Kickstart file. Pretty much defines what a server's supposed to look like. You set up your root password crypt. That's not a real crypt, by the way. You can set up what logging services, what the network is. This is really cool. In XCAT, you can define from a table in a database a set of variables like networks and stuff. So if I can do a lookup for this node, I know its host name, I know its IP. I don't have to set it up. We used to have a script back in the day that did it for us, but ever since we started using XCAT, it's really easy. And of course, your mirror, if you can scroll down, you can see the partitioning. That's another one that I was using for some logging stuff. Your package list, very small. But here's the thing that we're going to talk about a little bit, and that's Puppet. Very small package list. No Apache, no MySQL, no nothing. I just want enough to get the system off the ground and run the Puppet package. Now if you scroll down, here's some little bit of voodoo. I have the machine actually SSH into our Puppet master host, which is the configuration management host, and say, hey, I'm cool, clean out my old configuration, register me as a host, and make sure that the Puppet service starts up at boot. And that's all I care about. That's the only thing I do for this host. So can we go back to the presentation? Thank you very much, Jeff. Control-Alt. You could probably do that too. Oh, sweet. All right, so now the next task. We have a tool called XCAT, which allows us to provision hosts en masse. Very nice. But what do we do from here? All we have is a system that's bare bones. So what people usually do is they go Google, find a doc, and set it up for that day. It works today, it's awesome, okay, fine. But there's some things that they're kind of missing. Do we have revision control configuration files? Do we do that on a host-by-host basis? How do we store our revisions? You also have to, You also have to debug the configuration. Maybe you wrote in a typo and the service doesn't start. It's very time consuming, again, and with doing it by hand, it's hard to keep groups of systems in sync. So we use Puppet. Puppet is a Rails application. It's client-server, uses XML RPC over secure HTTP. So all that happens is you start up Puppet-D on the client, and it talks to the puppetmaster.domain that you're talking to, and you say, hey, this is who I am. Could you please give me my configuration? And it does. Let's get a little example here. I can't really get into the syntax or the language or what happened here. All right, let me go to the other side. You wrong marker for sure. All right, so we have a base server. It's a Linux server. This is the base server. What do we usually have on a base server? Any server in the world, what do you have on it? Well, yes, think of services. Of course we have the kernel. We need it. It's essential. What packages do we usually have installed on every single Linux server we have? SSH. We have to talk to it. We have to admin it. So we have SSH. Maybe we need some SSH keys so that we can, talk to it without typing in our password. You just use the agent. Maybe we have a shared root password. Let's say we're using LDAP. We need to copy over the LDAP config. Okay, so that's cool. We have this base thing, but now we have more. Now, think of it, this is pretty much, we're setting up classes in programming. So you have the web instance. We have Apache on it. We might have certain other things like PHP, obviously. And then we might have a database server here, which has other things. MySQL, Postgres, whatever. Well, the point I'm making is, in Puppet, you can define and create classes, inherit from them, and then say, okay, this is host 1, and this is a type HTTP, and this is host 2, and that's a type database. And what happens is when you talk to Puppet, or when the host talks to Puppet and says, I am this host, this is who I am, what do I do? Puppet says, here's your configs. It'll pass it a set of configuration data, and depending on what that configuration data is, it can install a set of packages and keep them in sync. It can write certain files to the file system, change the ownerships and the permissions on them, restart services, ensure services are up to date, like the latest one in the repository. So all I have to do now is have it run Puppet, and it does it for me. I didn't have to set it up. I didn't have to write configuration files. And the wonderful thing is, if I do have to change a config file, I edit it in one place, and I can back it up with HT or Git. So I only have to go to one server to manage an entire farm of systems. For example, package sync is one module that we use in Puppet. We have a certain set of packages that we use on our compute nodes. So we just have a list, and it runs package sync every 10 minutes, and it just keeps all of the packages in sync. So if I want to install a piece of software site-wide, edit a file. And also, the good thing is you never have to SSH into a server and edit a file again. And also in Puppet, usually files that are written you should probably set them read-only, so that way if you try to edit them in VI, it's like, oh, this is read-only, and it reminds you. Okay, next. Okay, so we have monitoring. The server's up, we have all of the services running on it, everything's great. But how do we make sure everything's running okay? Just pinging it isn't enough. Actually, one of the gentlemen that used to work over at USF, and he was a sysadmin, he doesn't work with us anymore, and I'm not naming names. His practice of monitoring whether servers are up or not is, oh, I go around the server room and look at the LEDs. I almost flipped the lid, because the guy was getting paid like 3 times I was, and I'm wondering what this chump was doing just looking at LEDs. So, I have some tools that I use to monitor services, maybe graph services, and also be able to take syslog and aggregate it in one place. So, we'll talk about that. Oh yeah. It's better for us to go and know within the minute if something's going wrong, rather than having an angry customer calling up saying, oh, my website's down, and you lose credibility. And of course, if you notice something is wrong, maybe a disk is dying, maybe you haven't been checking the logs and it's been saying, Smart D, I'm losing my disk here and I don't know what to do. So next. So we have 2 tools that I use. There are also alternatives to these tools, and I'll mention those in a second. I use Nagios for monitoring my host. Who knows about Nagios in this room? Okay, so some of you. So you know what I'm talking about. You have hosts, not just hosts. You have services. We're not really concerned about if the server's up or not. We're concerned about, is the service, is the product, is the thing that we're making money off of up and running properly. So if we can you change to the NX session? I have some examples of these applications. And these are the ones that are running, it's okay. These are the ones that are running in production right now. Hold on. There we go.
It was on that screen.
It was on that screen. All right, you think you can tab around?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so this is top right again. Or click the item that's in place. Sorry, comp is. All right, so this is Nagios here. It's pretty much a web application that sits on top of the daemon, and you have a configuration that says, hey, here's my list of hosts. These are services. This is the network information. Can you click on the services tab here? Right.
There's been a lot of me here.
Oh, thank you. You're doing awesome. All right, so give it a second. So we have, there's more to see if you can scroll down. I know, it's a pain in the ass. So we have a summary of all of our hosts, and there are quite a few, including, stop there, that's fine. And their various services. So what you do is in your configuration, you say you have a set of hosts. Each host has a certain set of services, and to each service, You have a certain set of plugins that check the various statuses of each. It isn't enough to just monitor, oh, do I get ICMP echo replies? No. You probably need to run some scripts to monitor the status of certain services. If your load, for example, on your NFS server is going through the roof, things aren't right. You might be getting
results.
Yeah, we also have results here. The great thing about Nagios also is that you're able to extend the functionality. If there's a certain service you need to check for and it's not online, you can write a plugin for it and just tell Nagios to execute it.
And it's just like a script.
Yeah,
It's whatever
it's just a
script
script.
language you want.
Pretty much. It's quite nice. And of course, when things do go down, you get a page. So you're able to respond to the condition within a few minutes rather than an hour. There are alternatives to Nagios. I've been looking into Nagios as my bread and butter. You can click dashboard right there. There's Zabbix also. Have any of you heard of Zabbix? Are any of you running Zabbix? Okay, Zabbix is, at least to me, relatively new. It's actually quite nice. You don't have to do any script writing, but the learning curve is kind of high. I'm still trying to figure out how to effectively set things up. But the wonderful thing is, it has very nice graphing features. So you're able to add all of your equipment to it, use SNMP to grab data and create graphs of, let's say, your network utilization on a certain port for certain hosts, things like that. So Zabbix is also a good alternative. Choose your tools well. Let's see, also, click Graylog 2. All right, so some of you guys know about Graylog. I love that Gorilla, that's awesome. So here's the second aspect of monitoring. You want to have all of your logs, your syslog, and your events being put in one place. So back in the day, I pretty much ran our syslog and said, okay, dump everything into a MySQL table. Well, I have 300 servers. It's slow to crawl. It took a minute or two to search for something. It's not very good. So anyway, recently, somebody emailed me this thing about Graylog 2. It's a Rails application. It has a daemon that takes in all of the syslog messages and aggregates them using MongoDB. So I have a 5-node MongoDB cluster, using sharding to spread all the data out. Makes it very easy to search for things. I also have streams. I don't know if you can scroll up. It's a pain in the butt. You have streams, so I can just say, oh, I just want to look at the auth failure stream, and I can see who's not typing in their password right, or whatever. You're also able to exclude certain things. So Graylog 2 is really nice. I don't mind storing my logs on MongoDB because if I lost all my data in a weird instance, I would cry. And it's pretty fast and it's reliable so far. So I'm using Graylog 2 for that. So monitor with Nagios, minute by minute, get your notifications if something goes wrong, and then if you need to aggregate, if you need a whole bunch of logs, you need to search them for certain weird things, Graylog 2 is a great tool for that. Can we go back to the slides? All right, so maintenance. This is the nice part. This is where it pays off to, be vigilant or to take the time to set this up. If you have a new service or you're running a new piece of software, you go into Puppet, you add a new module, for example, you add it to your schema, you commit it, and in 10 minutes it's up. There's another tool, you can Google it and also have the link. I use Parallel Distributed Shell. I can say, hey, all of my compute nodes, I want you to run something. But instead of actually making changes, I just say, tell it to make Puppet do stuff for me. And it will go and pull the latest changes and make it happen. Also, reinstallation is a piece of cake. I just had 10 new servers last week. Real nice boxes, like 16 processors, 32 gigs of RAM, and we have a ton of them because we're expanding. All I had to do was put them in the rack, tell XCAT that, hi, I have some new servers here, and this is the switch it's on. And I told Puppet, hey, here's a regular expression, and here's some modules. I said rinstall, plugged it in, turned it on, came up in half an hour. It was pretty nice. The only thing that took a lot of time was installing the packages. And of course, scaling out is a piece of cake, because if you have something that can handle a grid, even if you only have 10 machines, adding machines is not a big deal. So here's a summary. These are the tools I use. This isn't the definitive list. I'm not the big expert in all of these, but this is what I use and it works well. XCAT to install the operating system. Puppet to do everything else. You need a monitoring service to make sure your services are online, like Nagios or Zabbix. Log aggregation using RSYSlog and Graylog 2, and for those that are actually developers, are not supposed to be managing, servers, you can get your real work done. So I'm open to some questions about, the stuff that I do and the various tools I use and what cases they might be useful for you. Okay. Well, yeah.
Do you ever look at? I know it's free at a low end and quite expensive at the high end. Do you ever look at something like Splunk?
I have looked at Splunk.
I mean, under like 500 megs a day or something. I know it's free to use, but
yeah, unfortunately, I have to. If I was going to use my system and hook it up to Splunk, I would have to pay because I have so many data sources. And I would love to have those nice features, but I'm already scaled out so far. I can't use Splunk unless I pay a big chunk of change, and so that's the big hurdle for me. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Yeah.